Michelle. And we are live.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Waters Garden Center. This class is for gardening for newcomers. It's a really great class because no matter how great a gardener you were from where you came from, it's a whole different ballgame here. I am originally from Colorado. I moved here 5 years ago. This month, well, 29th of September, so almost there. But, I love it. I came in on vacation to visit my aunt, and we just fell in love with the place. And 6 weeks later, my house was sold. I bought another one, and I was here. It was the fastest move I've ever done in my life. But I was a good gardener at home, and I got here, and I struggled, and I did what they were telling me to do, and I still struggled. And then I did a little bit more of what they were telling me, and it's like, it's like ground is ground. Why is it so different? But Prescott, Arizona is a totally different, it's almost alien. It's so different. So basically, the biggest difference here is our high altitude. We are a mile high, kind of depending on where you're at in the Quad City areas. Up Prune Creek and some of the other areas, you're a little bit higher. Some of us, I'm in Dewey, I'm at like 4,600 feet. Mayer's a little bit lower. So we're kind of right in that 4,000 to 64,000 feet here. So we are at a hardiness zone 7. And the zones, how they work is the lower the number, the colder plants can tolerate. The higher the number, the more heat they can tolerate. So we are zone 7. Those that are at that 6,300 feet are probably a little bit colder. So they're probably closer to that 7A or maybe a 6. Those of us that are down in Dewey, Mayer, we're closer to that 7B. I think it's B that's higher, and then I think we go right to 8. We got some feedback.
Yeah.
When you are looking at tags, and this is really, really important because we are in an alien country. Our sun is so intense because of our altitude here that things fry. So when you look at the tag and it says full sun, if it is in our areas that have full sun stuff, it'll do great. This here says full sun or shade. This will fry if you put it in the full sun. So we try to split our nursery up so it's easy to find things. So we do have shade sections. We do have sunny sections. So if in doubt, ask. That's what we're here for. We strive in our customer service and to serve you. So we're all about the customer. So let us know if you have questions. The other thing about us is that we are a four-season town, so we do go through spring, summer, winter, and fall. We have a very short winter, so to speak. Usually we stay nice and mild until November-ish. And then from November till March, it's pretty cold. December and January being the coldest months of the year. Once we get into March, we're kind of back in the 60s and 70s. May brings in the 80s and 90s, and then we get the hot, dry, killing wind. I didn't realize that this place was so windy until I moved here. The wind blows constantly. In summertime, you don't really notice it because it actually cools you off. But in the spring months, it just drives you bananas. So it's a little different to plant here and to grow here. We are also a high desert, and that's another big thing. We are very, very dry. Humidity, except for during the monsoon season, is basically none. April or May and June, sometimes we have negative dew points, so it's really, really dry. So that's another big factor with that. We have different planting seasons, and I will go into those in just a moment. But basically, we are a zone 7, which means that we can get down to 0 in temperature-wise. Typically, the coldest I've seen it, and that I'm into, I'm up on hills, so I do stay a little bit warmer, is about 5. Our climate is changing, so we are getting warmer. It used to get colder than that. We used to get more south. So basically, kind of lumped up with them. Our last frost date in May is usually Mother's Day. So we start planting our warmer season vegetables after that point. Unless you want to cover them, keep an eye on the weather, you can do that. Our first frost date in the winter time or in the fall is usually Halloween, towards the end of October. So it just kind of gives you kind of a little bit of seasonality on there. With the hardiness zones, the lower the number, the colder it can tolerate. So if you are concerned about a plant, about getting cold, you want a lower number. Heat tolerance, if you see a 7 on there, we're probably pushing a shady spot, even though it says full sun, because they really can't tolerate our full sun. Okay. Seasonalities, vegetables. We start putting in cool season vegetables usually around March. January and February is all about garden prep. And if you are part of our garden club, you will get newsletters, and Ken will tell you exactly what needs to be done in the garden to get those gardens prepped and ready for spring planting. Spring planting includes lettuce, radish, all those cool season vegetables, cabbage, broccoli, all that type of stuff. Warm season is your cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, tomatillos. I'm contract growing tomatillos this year because I can't find them, so I'm really excited about that. So we'll have some wonderful vegetables. I do bring tomatoes in March. People think I'm crazy, but there are people that have cold frames, or they baby their plants and they take them in and take them out, all that stuff. So we can start early if you have the space. Like I said, if you want to plant a little early, it's all about just making sure that you cover stuff. Tomatoes don't like temperatures under 50. So they're a tropical plant. So kind of keep that in mind when you plant. Going into the fall, we do start bringing in, right now I have all sorts of lettuces, kales, cabbage, strawberries. It's a great time to get strawberries in. Broccoli, cauliflower, all of that stuff. We have another growing season, so we can still get excited about vegetable gardening. And we'll harvest before November. So it's great. Herbs, a lot of my herbs are actually perennial. So your sages, your thyme, oregano, mints will all come back. Even tarragon will come back and will overwinter there. So all that stuff is really good. Planting as far as trees and shrubs. Your planting time is basically any time. We do not freeze, so you can plant at any point in the season. May and June are a little tricky because of that hot, dry winds that we get. Still doable, but it is a little tricky because the winds dry out your leaves so much that you can't water enough to keep them hydrated. Once the monsoons kick in, you're full on planting them because that humidity allows your plants, they don't lose so much moisture and you don't get the transplantation that you do. Like I said, fruit trees, springtime is prime. That's when the biggest variety will be here. Evergreens, actually now is a great time to get your evergreens in. So that's kind of just a basic overview of how we plant here. Planting in this area, we live in a dead soil. There is not a lot of nutrients. There's a whole lot of calcium and iron in our soils, but our pH level is so high that it doesn't allow the plants to actually intake those nutrients. So we need to feed. And if you use our 744 that can actually specially created for this area, it has sulfur in it. What that sulfur does is actually lower our pH level. And that high pH will actually either kill your plants or they just don't grow well. So we want to keep that pH lower, and which is why we fertilize 3 times a year for our deciduous plants. So anything that's going to lose its leaf, we feed Easter, 4th of July, and Halloween. We throw a 4th feeding for evergreens, Christmas or New Year's, whatever holiday you want to take. Or quarterly for that person, we do it quarterly, March, June, and October, and the 1st. So those are kind of the basics as far as fertilizing. If you are looking at a lot of shade lovers, rhododendrons, azaleas, stuff like that, they really like that lower end of the pH scale. So you need to add a little bit more when you're planting those. So you'll need some soil sulfur when you plant those. A lot of people will ask me, why isn't stuff blooming? And if it is a low alkaline plant like the hydrangeas and stuff like that, that's what you need, is that sulfur or soil sulfur to get that pH more balanced with that night. Planting, you want to dig a big hole. So depending on what you are planting, if I was planting this, I want to go twice as wide and just as deep as it's sitting in this pot. So it's sitting about to this level. So I'm going to go probably 5 inches, whatever this is. And I want to go probably 12 inches wide. You can go wider. It's not exactly rocket science, but your plants will do better if you do a bigger hole. Basically what you're doing is giving your roots space to get strong and push yourself out. They're looking for those little crevices that they can crawl through and get through into that dirt. You don't need to bring in new soil to plant in, you just add mulch. So when you plant, you want 2/3 natural soil because they have to get used to where you live. Whether you are up at Sunview and you're a lot of DG and gravel sand, or out in Quailwood in Prescott Valley where you just sit on the clay. Organic matter will break up that clay, it will give your DG moisture holding power to keep your plants. And as your breaks down and actually fixes down. So you want to add that every time you plant, and that way you get a good start. We have a stress reducer, root and grow, which also helps stimulate those hair roots for us. Great product. Kind of smells good. It smells like molasses, really messy, so wear gloves. But it's kind of like a composted tea. Works on the hair roots of the plant. It will cut back on transplant shock. So if you need to plant in that May and June, this really helps the plants take off. And you'll be much more successful. Yes, Miss Ann. Her question was, can you use it for roses and anything? Absolutely. Root and Grow is a fabulous product, and it's actually a wonderful houseplant too. I ran out a while ago, and I had some of this, and I tried it. And my cat, I love cactuses, look at things. And they love this stuff. It's a 2-1-1, so it's a very low neutral fertilizer. And with fertilizers, that first number is your nitrogen. That's your leaves and all that greenery. The phosphorus is that middle number, and that's all about your flowers and your roots. And it's what it takes care of. And then the potash is just all around general health of the plant. So it takes care of that. So if you ever need to kind of try to remember that, think of up, down, and up, and then around. Try to remember what those three numbers are. But Root and Grow is a fabulous product, like I said. Cuts down stress on plants, and it'll help get things going for you. For bigger stuff, like the trees and shrubs, I use this for 6 weeks. Every 2 weeks, I put this on. Your perennials and stuff, your less woody things, I usually just do it once and I'm done. My tomatoes, I use this every time I plant them, and it just gets them really good. Okay. Sure.
So you're talking about digging a hole and what you find. Even though the depth is the same, can you go deeper and put in loose soil to kind of help?
You don't want to do that unless if you are sitting on a caliche bed, which some of us are, you don't. Going down with our clay, it tends to sink. So if a plant sinks, and there's a difference between where we are at and then Phoenix, because down in Phoenix they teach you to create a hole in a well. If you do it up here, and if you guys are new to the area, this year we've actually had a monsoon. And a lot of people have gotten flooded out. People have lost trees because there's so much water just going on over your area. And that soil just stays saturated. The majority of us have that heavy clay soil. Heavy clay soils hold that moisture in. So to answer your question, you don't want to go too deep, or if you do dig it up, kind of pack it back down, because you don't want it to sink. If you're going to err as far as planting goes, you'd rather go up. You want it higher than the surface of your soil than low, because your plants will drown. And it sounds really weird, but they will drown with the monsoon. Typically they won't if you're just watering them normally, but when you're getting 15 inches of rain in 2 weeks' time, you're going to have some plants. Okay. So I did bring some stuff up. I thought I'd use some show and tell. If you guys have questions, I'd be happy to answer them as we go, or if you want to wait for the end, that's okay too. Just let me know. Yes, ma'am. Hold on the whole area. So basically what they've done when you start in a new development, all that nice little topsoil that was there, they just scraped off. So you probably got a layer of clay, you've got lots of rocks. We do grow rocks here. And they do really well. They kind of just multiply underneath there. You can dig a hole and it's like, cut all these rocks out and something will die. I'll dig it back up. Please get in here. They have to get used to that soil. So that 2/3 to 1/3 still works for you. If you need, if you find out that it's just all rocks, or if you dig your hole and then you start to backfill and you just don't have enough, topsoil will help you fill that in, because that's what was taken off and you put it back in. Okay? And then just to finish that off, when you are digging your hole, you kind of want this bowl shape. You don't have to go straight across and up. You kind of just need it that way. Yeah. If you are on a caliche bed, or if you think you have drainage problems, or if you're just starting to get your landscape together, do a perk test. And basically what a perk test is you're going to dig a hole, you're going to fill it up with water, look at your watch, and see how long it takes for that water to disappear. It should be gone within 4 to 8 hours. If it is still sitting there after 8 hours, not a good place to plant a tree, because it doesn't have any good drainage. If that's the only place you have to plant a tree, I would make a raised bed of some sort and get that plant up off of that layer. Okay? Anything else on planting? If you plant a tree, you do want to use stakes, because of our wind. You probably want to leave land for a bit of years, just because you want that to get nice and sturdy for you. Sometimes you take them off too soon, and if we have a wet monsoon, a lot of those trees, if you get the right amount of wind, can just blow right out of the surface of it. So be really careful, make sure you're safe when you do your tree. Okay, so let's start with some evergreens and some trees, because it's kind of that season. We do a lot of pines here, just because it's kind of the natural habitat for our pines. We have beautiful ponderosas. We have, this is a Austrian pine. It is a really fast-growing pine, which is nice for some of our newer developments. This guy will get about 30 feet tall and about 20 wide. Grow about a foot a year once it gets established. And when I mean gets established, usually it takes a couple of years to get good roots underneath it before a tree will take off. And you need that healthy root system, because if the tree starts taking off and you don't have healthy roots, there's nothing to feed that everywhere. So be patient with plants. Some plants take off like nobody's business. Others take some time. Austrian pines, we also have Oregon green pines. They're more of a bottle brush kind of looking pine. Really pretty structures, look great with snow on them. Later on this fall, we'll be doing some Vanderbilt pines. It's probably the softest pine that you'll ever see. You can actually go up and hug it and touch it because it's so soft. It has kind of blue, silvery soil for foliage. Really, really pretty pine. Vanderbilt, it's a limber pine, but a really, really pretty tree. This is the Colorado blue spruce, and the blue spruces, we have several different varieties of those. The regular Colorado blue spruce will get about 40 feet tall and about 20 wide. They are a little bit slower growing than most others, probably getting at 6 to 8 inches a year, but they will get a nice big size. don't want to put one of these 8 feet from your house. Even if it looks really cute, don't do it. Because if you move, someone else is going to have to deal with it, or you're going to have to deal with it in a couple of years. Don't do that. There are, yeah. Pygmy? How wonderful. I've never heard of that. She's got a pygmy blue spruce. I have never heard of that.
I haven't heard that. Googling it.
Beautiful. She put it in October and it's growing wonderfully. I will have to research that because I've never heard of that. We do get a small blue spruce. It's called a Cester blue spruce. Basically, it'll get about 10 feet tall and about 4 or 5 wide. Okay. So her landscaper told her it was a pygmy blue spruce. We'll see what happens. We'll see in a couple of years.
Yeah, we want to know.
So there are all sorts of different types of blue spruce. We have the fat Albert, which is about 20 by 20. Very slow growing. Most of the ones that you see, a lot of people did put the fat Albert because they are so slow growing. Baccarat, it's about 25 feet tall. It's a little bit more narrow, which is one of the ones I really like because it can fit in some smaller yards. With a spread of 15 feet, that means it can actually be about 8 to 10 feet away from your house if you wanted it that way. Kind of have to be careful depending on where you're at because evergreens near your house is not such a fire life. But in your landscape, if you have smaller yards, the backward spruce does really well. There's also a baby blue spruce out there, another a little bit smaller spruce, slow growing, kind of in that same size range. It'll get 30 feet tall and about 20 wide. A lot of different options for you as far as the blue spruces go. While I'm on trees, let's do this one. A lot of people are talking about privacy, and we get neighbors that park RVs next to us or have an unsightly garage or something next door and want to kind of seal it off. These are Wichita Blues Juniper, really pretty blue spruce kind of color on them. And this will get about 12 feet tall and about 4 to 6 wide. So it's a nice upright juniper. And people worry about the allergens on these junipers. And they do have pollen, but they're not like the alligator junipers where if you put them with a broom, they go up and up. It's just like every other tree that has a little bit of pollen. So, if you're allergic, maybe not put it right next to your window, but I don't think it will bother you. Usually, their hikes are, you get about half of it in about 10 years. Junipers also have come in different colors. The Spartan Juniper is a nice green, like the Austrian Pine. Same height and width as this guy here. So you can kind of mix them up if you want some different colors in your landscape. Works really well. If you like narrow ones, the Blue Arrow kind of gets in that 12 feet tall and only 3 feet wide. So if you need something a little bit more skinny, works pretty good. Bottom Blade Maple. These are probably our best seller. These are going to get really pretty really fast because as soon as our nights get a little bit cooler here in the next month or so, you've already started to see some change if driving through town because of those cool nights we had a couple of weeks ago. As soon as that happens, and because of the sun is going, our days are getting shorter. So they are already going into the fall mode. Autumn blaze maple is a fast growing tree. It's one of the larger trees out there. This guy will get about 40 feet tall and about 30 wide.
I have more sheep.
I'll go ladies first.
I got Dewey. I have a bunch of those, and they're turning yellow. Is that what happens, or is it?
So take a look at your, she's got a one, she's out in Dewey and it's turning yellow. So what I will have you do is take a look at your leaves. If the veins in here, so where it's red here, if it's dark green inside that yellow, you have iron chlorosis. So you need some sulfur and you need some iron on there. And I think I think it's soil acidifier. It's in a high yield bag down there. Actually has sulfur and the iron in it. Put it on in the fall. It's a granular product, and you'll put it back on in March, and that will really help. And then make sure you're doing the 744 Easter July because if you keep it fed, it won't get that.
So I can't feed anything right now.
You can, if you want to do it right now, you can use the liquid iron. It's a chelated iron,
Okay.
and you can use it as a foliar spray. You'll spray it on the leaves, and it goes instantly into the tree. Now, you're basically what you're doing is kind of rehydrating it, so your leaves aren't going to change, but you're purifying it for next year.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir.
What kind of small holes are these?
So this tree has been beaten up by the wind this year. We also had some grasshoppers kind of come through that we had to take care of. So we all have our problems, but that's what happens there. Some of the trees, like purple leaf plums, tend to get shot hole, and it is actually a fungal disease. And it is aptly named because of that. It looks like someone put shot right through your ribs. It kind of, it's all over the place. Yeah, but it's a fungus, so if you use the Revitalize, it'll cut that down. Shot hole won't, unless it gets really bad, won't kill your tree, but you want to kind of protect it from it. Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like if you start protecting it late summer or early summer, you'll kind of keep that away. Okay. What about?
Do you recommend them?
Okay. His question was about aspens and birch trees. Do I recommend them in this area? So, Kim's gonna hate me, but aspens are a high altitude plant. And we are forcing them to live in a high desert, dry area. So they do okay in all areas. I mean, there's some beautiful ones down in Coilwood and Dewey. And in more established neighborhoods, because of all the protection they get, they don't get all that wind and speed up so much. So they don't get that brown around the edges. If you look at most aspen trees, and we probably have some out here, but you usually will get a brown edge around that. And it's just because they dried out with the wind, lack of humidity. Like I said, in May and June, you cannot water them enough to keep them happy.
So you're saying the bark gets
Not the leaves.
The leaf.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
The leaf.
I mean, this is a maple, but on the outside edge of aspens, they will get the brown edge. And it's just drought. I mean, it just dried out. So birches, if you live in one of those hotter areas, birches have the same beautiful gold foliage in the fall and winter, and they tend to take our heat better. So if you are in a lower Prescott Valley, Wildwood, all of those, I do recommend Birches over Aspens any day of the week. And like I said, if you're in an established neighborhood, absolutely. You can try it, just keep it well watered during the summer season as much as you can possibly do. Okay? Yeah.
So what do you think about Blueberries?
Her question is about deodorant cedars, and I love them. Deodorant cedars are one of the best growing evergreen trees out there. Fast growing, they grow very, very fast, about 12 inches a year, a month. That would be really nice. Really, really fast growers. They're kind of gangly when you first get them, when they're small, and they're kind of like a teenager. They haven't quite grown into their skin yet. But once they get established, there are some beautiful ones around town. When I first started here, they used to call them the California Christmas tree. They're just beautiful. They tend to get nice and big, so 40 feet tall, about 20 or so wide. They seem very adaptable. I have seen them crammed in some tight spaces, and they only get about 15 feet wide. So I don't know if they kind of adapt to wherever they're at or not, but I like to think that they do. Okay? Yeah.
My landscaper recommended the dwarf Alberta spruce over other evergreens. What do you think of that?
So her question was, her landscaper recommended the dwarf Alberta spruce over the other evergreens. So dwarf Alberta spruce does really, really well. It's a very, very slow growing tree, which is why a lot of people like it. They want something that already looks permanent now. It'll get about 8 feet tall and about 4 feet wide. Grows about 2 inches a year. And very, very slow growing. We sell a lot of them. You do have to pay attention to them because they tend to get spider mites. And spider mites can kill a tree faster than anything else if you don't catch them soon enough. So when spider mites hit, you will see a patch. And it'll just be brown. And it'll be more circlish. It kind of forms, it looks like someone threw a ball and it just died instantly. But you'll see spider webs in there, and you just want to hose it off. If you can catch it early enough, you can save your tree. If you don't pay attention to your yard, and you let it go for a week or two, you can lose the whole side. So they're really, really fast, so be careful. Just pay attention to them. You'll keep them, if you keep trees and plants healthy, you won't have as much issues with your bugs and stuff. Okay?
And they should be fed 4 times a year like
Correct. Yes, and they should be fed. Absolutely. So moving on, there are all sorts of evergreens. People kind of come in here, and especially if you're from a lush environment, it's kind of brown here because of all the gravel or DE and all of that. So there are ways to green it up. We have a lot of evergreens that stay whatever color they are in the wintertime. And you can get some really, really good colors with your evergreens. So, full sun, these are a euonymus. Both of these are. Euonymus are pretty well used in most of our landscapes because they are evergreen. They have these bright colors. Some are yellow, some are white. As far as the variegation, there's one we have that's called Gold Spot. That's really, really pretty. It actually has the green on the outside and the gold in the middle, which I really love. These are great plants. They come in a variety of sizes. This is more of a ground cover-ish, so it's about 2 feet tall and it will spread out just nice 3 feet wide. This is Silver King. This guy will get about 6 feet tall and about 2 feet wide, so it's more upright, so it gives you some vertical height. I will tell you that deer and rabbits love this the same ending. So if you have those in your landscape, don't plant these two plants. actually will lose its leaf. This is a burning bush. Really, really pretty fire red color. Wonderful in this fall and winter. But it will lose its leaves once we get cold and it'll just drop and it'll be sick. But it'll get about 4 to 6 feet wide. Again, just fabulous fall color if you want. A pop. Full sun, absolutely. Hot sun. Yeah. And so far everything, as I've been discussing, can't see. Everything that I've showed you so far is full sun. 4 to 6 feet.
What is the name?
Oh, no, this is a boxwood. Boxwoods are one of my favorite plants. They're a little bit boring because they are just great. All different sizes because this one's a Green Mountain, this one's upright. So it'll get about 6 feet tall and about 3 feet wide. There is Winter Gem. It gets 5 by 5, nice edible plant. We have some petite dwarf, which gets 2 by 2. These are deer fruit, rabbit fruit, catalina, the whole gambit of animals that we get. Grasshoppers don't tend to eat these because I have them, and this is kind of like my whole food plant. I've never had any problems with them. So, perfect plants, just for some green color in the wintertime. If you have issues, like I said, full fruit. Okay. Yantina is another one that's pretty well put around our neighborhoods. This is called heavenly bamboo, and I think it is not in any relation to the bamboo plant, except that it looks kind of like the leaves of it. These are compact, so they'll get about 3 by 3, 4 by 4. Full sun. They can take a little bit of shade, so they're kind of a little bit more versatile than a lot of other plants. Beautiful fall foliage. This guy goes all orange and red in the fall and winter, which is really, really pretty. And can change up your pinky or your brown, give you some color for that winter. Two more evergreens, and we'll move on to the Bowery stuff. This is a rainbow ascot euphorbia. This is actually a perennial. It will get 2 by 2. It'll turn kind of pretty purple in the winter time. All the yellow leaves will kind of go purplish. Pretty sharp fruit, kind of flowers. Great little plant. Animal resistant. It is in the Euphorbia family, so it has that white sap to it. One of my favorite things. Hopefully next year I found one. Here even in the show. I found the low one. And so it's bright, burgundy, gorgeous plant. Yucca, everybody's kind of familiar with the yuccas, but they do stay green in the wintertime. These guys have beautiful colors as far as their flowers go. And they bloom all summer long. Hummingbirds love this one. So, if you're going more drought tolerant and low maintenance, this is a fabulous plant. This yucca is in straight up Texas, so it's more upright a little bit, but it still will get 4 to 6 feet wide. Okay.
How long does it take for those to start blooming once you plant them? Because I planted some beginnings of summer that again.
Usually that first summer, it kind of depends on how they were disruptive as far as their bloom time, but it will bloom pretty much year or two. Sometimes they will have cups, and if you wanted to dig them out, you could do that. But like I said, these are great plants. If you're looking for something smaller, the great white yucca kind of stays in that 2 by 2 range. If you need something yucca-ish, you can put it in there for a smaller space. Yeah. Technical speaking.
Yeah,
was is if you took pops from the valley and brought them up here. Now, would I do it in the fall? Probably not. I would do it in the springtime and then bring it up, because then it would be, you have all summer to get, you know, acclimated to our soil and our temperature. Yeah.
Do you leave some of the seed pods on those for the birds, or is it not something the birds care about? You can put them on for the
Her question was, should you leave the seed pods on there for the birds? I don't like them. I think they're ugly. So yeah, I just take, if the pod is spent, you're basically deadheading the plant. So go ahead and do that.
If you do that, you'll, I got one of the, blooming, so you leave bloom stems, but all the others, are not. So if I deadhead off the seed pod, would that compulsion?
It should, yeah, absolutely. You're just basically deadheading just like every other plant. Yeah. Okay. Let's see, we've got all of this. Let's talk about berries for a minute. A lot of people new to this area like fruit trees, berries, and brambles. So yes, fruit trees grow really, really well here. Have a few pears, a few plums, and a lot of apples. So if you're looking for a fruit tree, we are going into this is our last week of our monsoon sale. If you guys are not familiar with it, Waters has one sale a year, and it is the monsoon sale. So if you were looking for discounted prices, now is a great time to introduce some new plants to your landscape. But fruit trees do really well. We don't do citrus up here. It is a house plant. So if you can have it on your porch in the summertime and then bring it inside, or you won't have a lemon or lime or whatever you want. You won't have lime after the first frost. They will kill it. Succulents are the same way, since I'm on that subject. If you brought anything from California-ish area, probably won't survive our winter. So be careful with your succulents. Check your zones on them or ask us. But anything that you brought from California, we want to make sure that it'll survive. Okay. A lot of people have moved in last fall and then everything dies. Okay, sorry. There's nothing I can do, but I can warn you this year. So you go into the fall knowing that. Berries, blueberries do really well. They do need some shade. This one does say full sun, and if you're in Washington, Oregon, or East Coast, California, full sun would be just fine. But again, we have that intense sunshine that it does not handle. So afternoon shade is a must. It can handle some morning sun. So that's a perfect spot. And this is another plant that does need some sulfur in it because it does like that lower end of the pH scale. So make sure you use enough sulfur in the spring and the fall. Blackberries, blackberries, raspberries, marionberries, grapes, all of those, pomegranates, figs, all do really, really well. So if you're looking to put fruit trees in, come and sit back and see us in the spring.
How about elderberries?
I'm sorry?
How about elderberry?
Elderberries do really well too. You do need two varieties to cross-pollinate, and like the black lace, you need some afternoon shade a little bit. It tends to fry. Unless you're in an established neighborhood where it can keep a little bit more cool.
When will you be getting the black lace elderberry in?
It'll be next year when the elderberries will get here. Absolutely. Fall is a great time for our lovely mums. These are perennial. They are basically just little green shrubs all summer long, and then they bloom this time of year. I have some in some really large pots. Usually I will give them a haircut, June-ish, July, just to get them to bush out a little bit more, and get you a nice fat plant. Gorgeous flowers, just deadhead them and they continue to bloom until you frost. Once we get closer to the end of October, leave the seeds on there. If you guys are into birds, moms love birds. Birds love moms. They go all over the seeds from these. So really, if you love watching birds, these are a great plant to have. Grasses. Fall is a grass season for us. They all bloom in the fall. So if you're looking to add some drought tolerant grasses, in 2 weeks we did a couple of trucks and we'll be full of the pampas grass, the ivory feathers, which is what's out in the parking lot out there. We'll have those to some.
How do you prune those, or do you? I have them in my front yard and they just.
Yeah. So, her question is how do you prune the pampas grass? And we usually prune in the spring instead of the fall. We do get cold, so we do get dieback. If you prune too heavily in the fall, you can, lose another 8 inches on a rose bush because of the winter time. Definitely clean up, but some of that extra dead stuff can kind of protect your crown and your root system from the cold. Yeah. I'm sorry? Right. Her question is you shouldn't prune roses in the fall, and I say if you want to give them a little bit of a shaping, that's fine. But I would wait until spring to do it. Yeah, because you will get dieback and you'll have to do it again. I'm lazy. I don't want to have to prune twice. Okay. Yeah.
The grass, will it winter okay through here?
Absolutely. It does go dormant. All the grasses will go dormant except for the blue fescue. So let them be all through the winter, and then you cut them back in March. Depending on your size of your grass, your pampas grass, I usually cut down to about 1 foot. And just take a hedge clipper, and with the pampas grass, if you tie a string around the top of it and tie it tight, it kind of keeps you from having that huge mess to clean up. Also wear long sleeves because it'll rip you to shreds. How are we doing, Jeremy?
We got about 8 minutes.
Okay. Speed it up. Perennials. Sorry. Sure. Yeah. Right.
But on our Vitex bushes, so when this is the first that you move here, the clippers are big enough all the time. The dead heads and the flowers, the dead things are all there, and the new stuff that can grow all the way up to the top of that. I didn't have the flowers until
Okay. Yeah. So she's from the Northwest, and she just got here, or Northeast, sorry. So she just went through her first season and not sure on pruning, so I'll just touch base on that real quick. For your Vitex, Vitex is a small tree, large shrub, gets about 12 to 15 feet, gorgeous, deciduous, tall purple flowers, all summer long. Bees, hummingbirds, butterflies love it. Really, really pretty. Take the blossoms off, the spent ones, just like you're doing everything else, deadheading. Butterfly bushes, you can do the same thing. Cut off the spent blooms, you'll get more. As far as that, just as you can do it as they die off. But butterfly bushes, Russian sage, any shrubs you're going to prune in the springtime. Fruit trees you prune in the springtime. Any of your other trees you're going to prune in the spring. A lot of evergreens, you can pretty much do that anytime. Be careful of pruning too late in the season, especially if you get a push of warm air. and they push new growth, you will get dieback into the new crops. All that new fresh tender leaves will be cropped. Usually February, March. So we kind of move a little bit further up the monthly scale, yeah. So yeah, we do all the pruning in the springtime, fruit trees, all of that stuff. Okay. So I'm running out of time here, so I want to open it up for questions. If you guys want to know about any of this other stuff that's up here, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Yeah.
Eventually, I'm getting an apartment built off the back of my daughter's house for myself. So eventually it will need some landscaping, trees and so forth. I'm not worried about that. I'm a container gardener
Okay.
because with bad knees, I can't get on the ground and eat one plant. So for container gardening, I want some things around my apartment that will lighten up. So some of these flowery things, can I plant now?
Absolutely. So she's going to be a container gardener, which a lot of us do. Our soil is very hard to dig in. Container gardening, you can do a lot of different things in. From roses to fruit, blueberries, all of this stuff will grow in a container. So what you're looking for when you are planting in a container is look at the size of the plant that you're looking to put into that container. Make sure it stays in that size range, or if it's more cylindrical. For instance, you can put this boxwood in a container and it'll do just fine. If it's like a 22, 23-inch container, because it's going to go up. It's deep enough. You want to go twice as wide, twice as deep, so you have places for the root system to go. When you plant in a container, you're going to use potting soil. We have a potting soil. There's no fertilizer in it. We do not like Miracle-Gro. Miracle-Gro works great in other places in the country. We are very, very alkaline. Our water, our soils, all have salt in them. A lot of the fertilizers are salt-based. That whole magnesium point, too much of that is salt. So you got to be really careful with that because too much salt can kill a plant.
Was that the same with well water?
Yes, well water has a lot of salt in it. So that's why we all have filters and things. So we want to take that salt out of it. Yeah.
So when you're looking at the zones on the pad, you want to make sure that you get something that's going to be weak to hardy so it'll go through the winter. So you want to be around 3 or 4, right? And what when you're looking for full sun, one side of my house it just gets cold hotter than hills. You can't stand here, it gets rocking in the house.
Yeah.
We call it.
So
What
yeah.
zone do you look for that, 8 or 9?
Yeah. So her question was about reiterating the zones. So you don't necessarily have to find a plant that's 3 or 4 because we don't get that cold. So 3 or 4 is like -40. We'll never get that cold. But you know, if you're up in, like I said, Grove Creek, 5 or 6, typically most of our plants are 5 to 9 or 10. 9 and 10 is Phoenix. We're in that 7. Yeah.
I brought 2 containers of the desert honeysuckle from the valley for the summer here. Will they survive the winter here?
I would have to look that up. She's got some desert honeysuckle that she brought up, and it would just depend on what's going on.
I read it. It
Okay.
said 5 through 9.
Perfect. Then yes, it will. Absolutely. Yeah.
I've got a couple of plants that the roots have just been chopped off, but I don't see any vegetable, I don't see any bounty. But I see you have something that gives a whole lot of possibilities, ground squirrels, rabbits, gophers,
Right.
but it's the roots that are getting.
Okay. She's got some roots on the surface that are getting eaten.
Underground. And
So do you have little holes in your
I
plants?
don't see any entry hole and no bounty.
So how are they getting to the
That's
roots?
what I'm wondering.
So if your roots are showing, put a light layer of topsoil on top of that. Don't go really heavy, but just a light layer just to get those roots covered. And see if that helps, because it could be just little lizards or, things just nicking them as they go by. If you're not seeing any mounds or anything else, you don't have to worry about gophers or any of that. If you have mounds, that's a gopher issue, and that's a whole nother ballgame. Yeah.
And on 15 those jobs,
Sure.
I have a person. What is in the school? And you get to be in the book now. And come and run to the future. It gives leaves that strength. It makes flowers.
Okay. So she has an indoor house hibiscus, so it's probably a tropical hibiscus, which are houseplants here, or tropical patio plants for the summertime. It's doing a lot of nice green growth, but you're not getting any flowers. So you need a fertilizer that has some superphosphate in it. So if you use our flower power fertilizer, it has a very high middle number, so that's definitely and that'll help get that bloom. Every 2 weeks. Okay, sure. Okay, so I need to say goodbye, but I will stay up here and answer any of your questions. I'm here all day. Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank
But it will be on YouTube and within the week. I will say that the recording is going to be a bit loud because of the cicadas. So I'm sorry.
So I just keywords and put water garden center.
Oh yeah, you'll find us on YouTube. Yeah. It'll take a couple days for it to load, but it's already loading as we speak.
YouTube and what?
Facebook.